Be with you, and this is not just pro forma. I can't be with you because I'm the finance minister of Israel and because today we're passing the budget, and that's what finance ministers do for a meager living. They pass budgets, and so I have to be in the Knesset, in our parliament, and unfortunately I cannot be with you for a more extended conversation. That extended conversation was prevented last time I was in Canada when I tried to speak at Concordia. They tried to shut me up, but they gave me a platform for millions of Canadians on the nightly news, so actually something good came out of it. But in order to have something good come out of this, I thought that the most important thing that I can tell you in the little time that I have is what I think is the problem. The problem that we face, especially in Europe and in Canada in this sense is more similar to Europe and different from the United States, is that we are judged guilty for what we are, not for what we do, but for what we are. And what we are, according to Arab propaganda, adapted by the leftists and anti-Semites and others, is that we are colonialists. We have usurped a land that is not ours. It doesn't so much matter how we handle this occupation, how we handle this usurpation, as long as we are guilty of colonialism and usurpation, then that is something that we cannot shirk off, we cannot discard. And therefore we're guilty no matter what. I think this has to be attacked. We're not colonialists. We are in a land that has been our historical homeland for thousands of years and has not been the homeland of any other people. Arafat, of course, and Arab propaganda as a whole seeks to reconstruct history and change that. And what they seek to say all the time is that this land, Palestine, the land of Israel, was populated by a people called Palestinians. They lived in this teeming, verdant homeland until the Zionists came in and started conquering through colonialization, this Palestinian homeland. The date that Arafat gives for this purported invasion is 1880. This is in his famous UN speech, and this is accepted basically as given truth. Now, it is important for you to understand that the 19th century was replete with voyagers who came to the Holy Land. Americans, Englishmen, Frenchmen, Swiss, German. They wrote hundreds of travelogues, hundreds of books on their visits. One of them was a very famous author, which might be familiar to you, Mark Twain. And Mark Twain said of his visit in 1869, 11 years before Arafat's purported invasion, he visited the Holy Land. He said that he went through an entire day in the Galilee and didn't see an individual, a single human being. He said he climbed up to the barren rocks and slope of Jerusalem, and he said, Jerusalem sits in sackcloth and ashes. And he bemoaned the fact that the Jews are not there because he believed that only when the Jews come back will this land come alive and renew its former glory. So could it be that from the visit of Mark Twain a decade later to Arafat's purported invasion, something miraculous happened and the land filled up with these teeming Palestinians with their ancient homeland whom the Jews had to usurp? Alas, we know that that is not the case because in 1880, exactly the year that Arafat says that the invasion took place, another very famous 19th century man visited the land. His name is less familiar to you, although he's buried in the apex of Westminster Abbey. He was considered one of the great citizens of England of his day. His name was Arthur Penrhyn Stanley. He was the greatest cartographer, the greatest map maker and geographer of the 19th century. He wrote in his book in 1880, I look in Judea. Notice, by the way, that he uses Judea, which was the proper geographic and historic name for our land before it was politicized as West Bank and trying to detach our ancestral roots there. He said, I stand in Judea, I look north, I look south, I don't see a single human being, almost echoing Mark Twain word for word. And he too bemoaned the fact. He said, when will the Jews come back and bring this land alive? So obviously somebody is lying. It's either Mark Twain and Arthur Penn Stanley who are lying on one side, or Arafat who's lying on the other? And the answer is clear. Arafat and Arab propaganda is lying in order to deprive us of the continual possession of this land by the Jews, and the fact that when the Jews weren't there, nobody else was. In fact, the Jews did begin to trickle back to a land that was largely empty. There were Arabs there, but very few, certainly not the distorted picture. But since the Jewish Commonwealth, the Second Commonwealth, since the 2,000 years almost of Jewish continuous hold on the land, this land was successively taken over by other empires who made nothing of it. It became a backwater, first for the Byzantines, then for the Persians, then for the Crusaders who stayed here a short time, then for the Islamists, then for the Turks, and in fact, and then the British. It was not at all taken up as a land by others. Secondly, we never gave up our rights to our land. We are like a tenant who was kicked out of his land, never gave up his rights, came back to it, saw a ruin, no one took it over, no one did anything with it, brought it back to life, and here comes the clincher. The clincher is that when we came back in the late 19th century to this barren land of Mark Twain and Arthur Penn Stanley's description, we did start bringing it back to life. And the Arabs who were there, the few Arabs who were there, were joined by many who came from surrounding lands as foreign labor to this growing Jewish enterprise, to the cities, to the towns, to the factories. So in fact, all of our propaganda is reversed. It is not we who usurped the land, it is they who usurped it, discarded it, and we came back and brought it back to life because we never, ever gave up our claim. Neither did the Spaniards. They were conquered for 800 years by the Arabs. And the Arabs in Spain, unlike here, built a tremendous civilization. But the Spaniards wouldn't give it up. From a little foothold in the north, in a place called Oviedo in the mountains, they just drove the Arabs year by year with fire and blood, with terrible sacrifice, until they got all of Spain back. Nobody said that Spain was usurped. The Jewish case is different from Spain. One, it didn't take us 800 years, it took us about 1,200 years from the Muslim conquest, when we were made a minority in our land, to come back to become a majority. About 1,200. That's no big difference. Second difference, we didn't do it with fire and blood. We did it by building a farm, building a city, building a moshav, and welcomed the Arabs who came here. Third, the Spaniards would not compromise with anything. They wouldn't even think of the slightest compromise. It is a fact that Zionism from the 1920s offered successive compromises to the Arabs who were there, many of whom came because of the Zionist restoration. And the Arabs, of course, rejected it, and many do till this very day. So if any people have a right to a piece of land, it is we in Israel, to the land of Israel. I recognize the demographic realities, and I regret that we cannot be everywhere and probably will not have Jewish sovereignty on the populated parts. That is a fact. It's a regrettable fact that the Arabs have taken a good portion of our homeland, but they're there. But there are plenty of spaces that are empty. About 2/3 of Judea, Samaria, the West Bank are empty. They're unpopulated by Jew or Arab alike. And yet, and we, of course, have enormous attachment to these areas. There's tremendous historic significance there. There is also strategic and security importance for us. So these are lands that we claim, lands that the Arabs claim. We'll have to negotiate about it if we have a peace partner. We shall see. But to argue that we have no rights on this land, that this land, which is our ancestral home, is something that we have to give to the Arabs, who in many ways usurped it from us, and are now usurping history, reversing it, is, I think, the key argument that we must explode, because it is a lie. At the end of the day, the only thing we have is the truth, the facts. And free societies have often crumbled and have paid dearly before the onslaught of slander and vilification and lies. If any people has suffered such vilification, it is the Jewish people. There's not been any pogrom that's been directed at us that has not been preceded by a campaign of distortion and vilification. And certainly the campaign against the State of Israel is premised on the ability to turn us into the colonists and to turn the Arabs into the colonized. Nothing could be further from the truth. That has to be corrected. If we correct this, everything else follows. There are many other things that have to be corrected, but this is the most basic one. This is what I chose to spend a few minutes talking about. When I actually visit Concordia, we'll expand on these and other subjects. I wish you well.